Shall we get started?
Yes, ma'am.
Mataji, should we record or not? We are not sending.
If you wanted to save audio, we can record. Otherwise, not. When I went to India,
recording in the
stopped
stream.
doing. Yeah, when I went to India, they stopped doing audios.
Oh, okay, no audios, right? Okay, no problem. Yeah, this is good, Mataji. Prabhuji, you there, Prabhu?
Yes, Mati, I'm here, Mati. Yeah, okay. Start,
Hi,
Mati.
Krishna. Thank you all so much for joining us today. And we are very, very fortunate to have His Grace Sundaranand Prabhu, who is to all of you. He's known for his teaching skills and also his taste for Srimad Bhagavatam. So we are very honored to have him on the call. Prabhuji will be covering Canto 2, chapters 7 and 8. So these are two chapters. You'll be getting an overview of both these chapters in continuation. So thank you so much, Sundaranand Prabhu. You can now take over the call. Hare Krishna.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mati. Let me get to that screen. Yeah. Okay. You can see the screen, okay, Mati?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay,
Thank
perfect. Yeah, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Sri Prabhupada. So we'll offer brief prayers and then we'll get started. Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Budirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Nastiki. Okay, thank you all for joining and for making your time for this discussion. And thank you to the organizers, Preeti Vilas Mataji, for giving me the opportunity also, so that I can prepare myself and I can absorb the Srimad Bhagavatam for this session. It was wonderful for me. So let's go through. So I thought the way we can start is, I'll give the context where we are in the second canto. Now we are going to talk about 7th and 8th chapter, right? Before we discuss 7th and 8th chapter of the second canto, we can discuss the context of the flow so far in two different ways. One is by primarily using the Srimad Bhagavata Subhadini from Gauranga Darshan Prabhu and unveiling his lotus feet by Burjan Prabhu from that. And then second way is from using Swayam Bhagavan Keshava Swami Maharaj, who is called Suttapa Prabhu before. With these two, we'll use to develop the context first. So if you remember, at the end of the first canto, Parikshit Maharaj asked two questions to Sukadeva Goswami, which is, what is the way of perfection for all persons, especially one who is about to die? Because the circumstances, Parikshit Maharaj is about to die, because he had only 7 days time, before which he will pass away from this world. That's why he's asking this important question. What is the way of perfection for everyone, especially for a person about to die? Not only for him, for everybody, all of our benefit. And then he also specifically asks, please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember and worship. Everyone now within the life and before the end of the life. So how to live the life and how to live the life also, live the body. So then he also says what he should not do also. These are the primary questions he asked. And the second canto, Sukadeva Goswami immediately answers the question. First he starts with what he should not do. Basically he condemns the attached household life, or Grihamedi life it's called. That means where somebody considers just taking care of family is ultimate goal of life. So it's not saying that we should not have household life, not saying that we should not have married life, not saying we should not have children, but considering that is the only goal of life and taking care of that only and being busy with all those things. but no time for Krishna. That is what he condemns first in the first 3 verses, 2 to 4 verses. Then he says what we should hear, we should hear, glorify, and remember Supreme Lord. Straight answer. And then in the next two, basically first 3 chapters, he first makes a statement that Bhakti Yoga is the best process to achieve perfection in life. Then he sees so many people in the audience, sages with different backgrounds and different inclinations towards, from based on their consciousness for perfection. So he addresses what each of their preferences are, like Ashtanga Yoga, Karma Kanda, Jnanapath, and even demigod worship he talks about. Then this is all talked about in Bhagavatam to contrast with Bhakti Yoga and to establish how Bhakti Yoga is the topmost, easy, simple, fast for getting perfection, like that. So many adjectives we can use. We'll also see in another slide those details also. Basically, first 3 chapters of the second canto were talking about how Bhakti Yoga is the topmost. That's the main point we need to take. And in these verses, if you need to take one verse, that one verse is that Akama Sarva Kamava Moksha Kama Udaradi, Tivra Bhakti. This verse is glorifying the Tivra Bhakti, and means intense devotion service we need to do to achieve perfection. Whether we have all desires doesn't matter, or we don't have any desires at all, material desires doesn't matter, or we have desires for liberation only. Still, if we perform intense devotion service, we can achieve perfection for sure. How do we do intense devotion service? By not just doing mechanical devotion service, not just doing complacently devotion service, not just doing just touch of devotion service, touch of this, touch of this, touch of that, like that, but with full focus or devotion service and connecting everything in connection with Krishna. That's one. And actually, Swami Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj uses nice principle that by being honest with ourselves, and also we can increase intensity by increasing the quantity of our devotion service, quality of our devotion service. This can be and or. We can use any of them. Either quantity of devotion service, quality of devotion service, difficulty of devotion service we take up. That means different responsibilities we take, and the responsibilities we take up in devotion service for different services, for responsibility for others to guide them. So that's how we can increase our intensity of devotion service he describes. So it can be either or and also, because for some people there is not enough time, then you increase the quality. Some people we have some more time to increase devotion service, we increase the quantity, like that. That's the first 3 chapters. Bhakti Yoga is the topmost. Next, after this, Parikshit Maharaj asks questions from Sukadeva Goswami, asking him to describe the primary and secondary creation, which are called Sarga and Visarga. And Sukadeva Goswami answers like any other nice devotee would do, by reference to previous discussions that happened already on this topic, or by looking at scriptures, like that, right? So here, Sukadeva Goswami describes by referring to Brahma and Narada's conversation. Of course, before this, he praises Supreme Lord, glorifies Supreme Lord, and then he refers to that conversation. And what is important in that conversation is the last bullet here, because in that conversation, Narada Muni asks Brahma, so are you the Supreme? Like that he asks in a simple way, if I put it. Then Brahma, very clear, straight, he tells that I am not the Supreme. Actually, Supreme Lord is creating everything, is giving all the ingredients for me. And then I'm just using the ingredients, and I'm using the capacity he has given me to do the secondary creation, like that he describes. So that's how he establishes the true status of the Lord and himself also. So we talked about first 3 chapters, how is describing Bhakti Yoga is the topmost for achieving perfection. And then 4th chapter, we hear how the introduction of Parikshit Maharaj asking questions about creation, and Sukadeva Goswami introducing the conversation of Brahma and Narada. That's what we see in the 4th chapter. Now, 5th chapter and 6th chapter onwards, you heard last week about Narada. Remember, now we are from the original Bhagavatam goes into one conversation, into another conversation, like that, right? From Suta Goswami to Sayas of Navisaranya. From that, it enters into Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj conversation. From that, currently in this canto, it's going to Brahma and Narada Muni conversation. In some other, it also goes to Maitreya Muni and Vidra conversation later on also. So, this Brahma and Narada conversation, Narada Muni is asking 6 questions. Primarily about the all connected to the universe and universal creation, he asked the questions. So, some of the questions are answered in the 5th chapter, some of the questions are answered in 6th chapter. Essentially, if you don't remember anything, all we can remember is 5th chapter and 6th chapter. Essential point is saying is, Supreme Lord is everything. That is a simple point is saying in detailed way. What are those? Some of those we can see here. In 5th chapter is saying all the different ingredients or characteristics of universe, like elements, including jivas actually, karma, kala, swabhava, means nature, are not different from Vasudeva. Then he says, Narayana is the shelter of what did you see in the universe, that is worth taking shelter of. If you see something very beautiful, something very dependable that we want to depend on, that is coming from Narayana, Supreme Lord, then we understand, then we take shelter of Supreme Lord instead, like that. So all this knowledge will help us to understand the greatness of Supreme Lord and take shelter in Supreme Lord. Now, here is saying the elaborate process of creation. Basically, how the different ingredients were created in the primary creation by the Supreme Lord himself. How from Mahatattva, Pradhana, Mahatattva, Ahankara, all these 5 sense objects, 5 gross elements, 11 senses, including the mind, all the creation is described in an elaborate way. It's a very technical section. And then he also describes actually Virat Rupa form of the Lord. So actually that connects to the next chapter. Basically, he's trying to confirm that Supreme Lord is the cause of everything. We know generally Ishvara, Paramakrishna, Sachidanand Vigraha, Anadir, Govinda, Sarvakarana Karnam, how the Supreme Lord is the cause of everything, all the causes like that. So here establishes Supreme Lord is the material cause and efficient cause. The 2 terms used here. Primarily by material cause is saying when Lord Brahma was trying to create, Supreme Lord manifested the form, the Virat Rupa, and actually through Garbhodaya Vishnu's limbs only he got all the ingredients of the universe also. In fact, all the ingredients for sacrifice also Brahma got from Garbhodaya Vishnu only. That's how it's called as a material cause. And then is called as the efficient cause because he energizes the universe both from inside and outside. What does that mean? That means as Karnakasha Vishnu, from him all the universes are coming like this in the picture. And within each universe is entering as Garbhodaya Vishnu. That's how he's energizing the universe by going inside. Until that time, nothing happens. So like that. And we also know that he also gets into each atom and living entity as a Kshirodakasha Vishnu or super soul like that. And then he also answers another question that Narayana is the dependence of the universe. That means only by his empowerment. Even Brahma does the creation. Vishnu, he himself does maintenance, of course. And Lord Shiva does the destroying or annihilation at the end of the universe time. Of course, there are different annihilations that happen at different Vedic time scales. We'll briefly discuss that also. Then he says, Mahavishnu is the one who creates this manifested cosmos. He maintains for some time and absorbs them into himself again. Because this is one of the other questions that Narada Muni asked. What happens at the dissolution time like that? Then he's saying Mahavishnu, everything goes into Mahavishnu's body only at the dissolution like that. So this is a simpler version of the whole creation summary from last week. Now this is where the link is coming. At the end of the chapter, after Brahma explained all these creation things to Narada, remember towards the last few verses, he described about Karnadasha Vishnu, Garbhodasha Vishnu and Kshirodakasha Vishnu. Those are called Purushavataras we know. Now he says, those are avatars in relation to the material world, in interaction like that, with material energy interaction like that. But there are other pastime incarnations that Supreme Lord comes, where it's interacting with the internal potency like that. Then let me describe them, he's saying, Brahma. And what are the characteristics of those? he calls them as Leela avatars as a generic term. But however, we'll see in the next chapter, he also describes other incarnations also. Not only Leela avatars, he describes Guna avataras, Shakti avataras, and some vibhutis also he describes like that. So, what are the characteristics of those Leela avatars? These characteristics are pleasing to hear, very nice to hear for us, and not to be relished by everyone. And hearing of these will contract all the foul matters accumulated in the ear. That means it brings about purification for us also. So it's not only just sounding nice, it is ultimately beneficial for us also. This is the message that we'll see repeatedly in this section coming up also. So that's how that's the context for getting into 7th chapter, which is describing different incarnations of Supreme Lord. Okay, make sure. Yeah. So that's the one. Now let's go to the next one. This is from a nice devotee, Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Swami Maharaj, and he used to be called as Sutapa Prabhu until few months ago only. He got recently sannyas initiation. He wrote a simplified books for Bhagavad Gita summary study, Bhagavatam summary, and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita study also. So from Bhagavata book that is available for you to download from this website also. It's free PDF. So I took 2 slides, 2 portions from the book to summarize the first 3 chapters in this slide, and next slide will summarize the next 3 chapters. So he has the way he writes the summaries is, he uses an acronym, simple acronym to explain each canto, in fact. He is such an amazing personality. He can summarize everything to such small thing. He summarizes that as a acronym as CUT, C-U-T. So first 3 chapters it represents C as a connection, he says. And the next 3 chapters, U is a universal creation. And the last set of chapters, that is 7, 8, 9, and 10. Those are, he calls them as theology, entire theology of Vaishnavism, like that. So now we have to look in the C portion, connection. Basically, remember the first 3 chapters we said how it's establishing bhakti is the topmost to easily achieve perfection, like that. That he summarizes in his own way, in simple way here. Basically, he initially says there are some atheists who say there is no God. Then there's people who are agnostic. They say, I don't know if God exists or not. And there are theists. Within the theists, there is a different class of theists who believe that there's a God. But then there are different classes of worshippers based on their consciousness and based on their understanding, based on their inclination. They take certain portion of the Vedas and then they understand that is the truth, whole truth they think. So without understanding the bigger picture. So some worship the demigods. Some, like you probably remember from the initial chapters of this canto, he describes how the yogis who are very attached, they meditate on the universal form. And the yogis who are not so much attached to the material desires, they meditate on the super soul in the heart, like that. That's what this is representing, universal form and God in the heart. And then beyond that, it's the Bhagavan feature of the Lord. That Bhakti yogis worship, like all of us practicing devotees worship, like that. So Sukadeva Goswami, to attract different people who are attracted to different theistic paths, he described all of those and he establishes devotion service or Bhakti Yoga as topmost, like that. Now, this bottom portion is summarized nicely. Why is Bhakti considered the highest practice or the topmost practice or the best practice we should take up, like that? So simple, nicely put it together. It gives the highest return. Like when we invest some money, we look for return of investment, ROI. So like that, we get the highest thing, personal, intimate connection with the Supreme Lord, and actually satisfies our heart fully. We know from first canto also, same thing. Apratikata, uninterrupted and unmotivated devotional service, right? Apratikata, and what is the other word? I forgot now. Uninterrupted, unmotivated. Unmotivated is ahetiki. Apratikata is uninterrupted, correct? Yeah. Ahetiki and apratikata. So when we do devotional service, that is not motivated with any selfish desires. And we do devotional service, that's not interrupted. That means we do every day our sadhana. Not today, I will enjoy. Not only like that. We always do our devotional service like that, sadhana. That will give the highest return for us. And then highest rate also. When we invest money somewhere, we look for which bank will give the highest savings rate for me. So now we are getting highest saving rate also, right? So this one, it says, when we do sincere and serious practice, it yields a divine experience very quickly. Where other processes will give you temporary pleasures and they take a long time, give some experience also. Whereas bhakti gives the experience quickly, divine experience quickly, like that. It's all relative terms, remember? And then reachable. So that means, whereas processes like Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, you require a lot of austerity or a lot of speculative capacity. Whereas bhakti is reachable for everybody. Whether somebody is of this caste, that caste, doesn't matter. Somebody small, big, male, female, doesn't matter. We know from Bhagavatam also stories, right? Prahlad Maharaj, from the womb itself, he became a devotee. Dhruv Maharaj, from a few years old itself, he became a devotee. Like that, Ajamila, at the end of life, he became a devotee. Like that, different ages, anybody can take up bhakti. And we also see not only Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras also can take up devotional service. So many different variations. It's reachable for everybody. And then this is an eternally available option, which can be embraced at any stage of life. That means, irrespective of, we don't need to think, oh my God, I did not know bhakti. My parents did not know bhakti when I was born, so I'm doomed. I'm not getting perfection. Not like that. We can always get, whenever we found out about bhakti, we can start there and achieve perfection. And of course, it's reliable. That means it gives immediate results and eternal results, which remain with us forever. For example, I came to know bhakti only a few years ago. Then I started bhakti as sincerely as I can now. But let us say I make progress only 3%. Then next life I can start with 3%. Whereas other process, even if I do 3%, now next life I need to start from 0%. So that's the beauty of Bhakti Yoga, like that. So not only Srimad Bhagavatam is saying this, our acharyas who revere Srimad Bhagavatam, and they all assert, like Sridhar Swami, Jiva Goswami is quoted here, our Bhakti Yoga is not only easy, simple, natural for us as a spirit soul, and is free from trouble, and is also the only source of happiness for us as jivas. Now we go to the next chapter. So this chapter, this section, remember, now we are, after the cut acronym that he has, we are explaining now, universal creation. This is from chapter 4, 5, 6, and 7, 4 chapters. So now, this is a simple way of putting it also again. With this, we are not only giving the context, we are also giving the next chapter also, but we'll go through that. Basically, here is describing how these 4 chapters are describing so that we can understand the whole mystery of creation. Of course, we may not understand every single detail, but we understand the big picture, and we carry some impressions in our heart, which are very important for our bhakti. We'll describe why. So he's putting into 3 categories basically. Why? We need to know about why this creation, first of all. That is the mystery of creation, understanding. So this material world creation and annihilation is happening regularly in a cycle to allow conditioned souls like us to play as we like, because we desire to play apart from Krishna. We desire to enjoy apart from Krishna, like that, right? To give us an opportunity, to give us a sandbox to play with. And then also give us an opportunity to rectify ourselves, purify ourselves, understand this is not the place. My best place is to the spiritual world where I'll be happy and satisfied always. So to understand that, to give that facility for us, that's why this material world creation is happening again and again. And at the annihilation time, based on our consciousness elevation, we get another body again, if we don't perfect our life, of course. Then when is this creation happening? When is the annihilation happening? That is being shown by this picture. Because we have very little time, I will go through briefly only, but still we'll go with enough detail. Basically, the way to understand this picture is, many of you might already know. So the top line is the entire life of Brahma. That means from the time he is born, from this time is death. That is 311 trillion years. This is so 311 trillion years, that is 36,000 kalpas are days of Brahma is described, and equal number of nights also. So within that days of Brahma, one day of Brahma is being expanded here, which is also called a Kalpa. That is 432 billion years. It seems. During the one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus that come to rule. We know this. It's also explaining in this Bhagavatam is explained clearly also. So then the 14 Manus, each of them rules about 71 Divya Yugas. What does Divya Yuga means? Divya Yuga means cycle of 4 yugas, because Vedic time is, Vedic perspective of time is cyclical in nature, right? 4 yugas: Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Like that, 4: Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali Yuga. So these are called Divya Yuga. 71 such Divya Yugas make one Manvantara. Okay. So in these 4 yugas, we are there in the Kali Yuga now, like that. So when we see this whole expansion of the time scale, we can imagine what is our 100 years of lifetime, and in this universal time scale, we need to impress on our mind and heart this point, because that helps us in understanding the insignificance of us and the greatness of Krishna, both also at the same time. So that we can see. And then how is this being done? How is this whole creation is being done? The material world is created by the energy of the Supreme Lord. He manifests in the beginning of creation by the penance of Brahma. And then also there are 9 Prajapatis who are helping him in the creation. They're all known as the 9 great sages. And then when the maintenance is happening, even though Vishnu is meant for maintenance, he's supported by who all? By devotion service. There are devotion service to the Lord Vishnu, our factual religion. Okay. Then different demigods and the kings of different planets who maintain the world. They're all supporting the maintenance also. Of course, we know annihilation is happening with the help of Lord Shiva and Rudras. We know that also is done. But the creation, now, what is the benefit of knowing all this detail? Is there any significance for it? He's describing, Swamiji Maharaj is describing in one angle. Of course, there's another angle described in the end of 7th chapter, we'll also see. Okay. So this angle is simply putting, we'll understand by going through this creation pastimes, the greatness of Krishna, number one. That means, see, from Krishna, Mahavishnu, all these creations came, all the Purushavataras came from Krishna only. Of course, there's whole lineage how he comes. And then all these elements came from Supreme Lord himself. Then all of us are part of him only. So everything we see is from Krishna only. It's so great like that. Then he's doing this elaborate creation with so many complexities that we hear about in creation, and so many intricacies. All these things he's doing. So that means we'll understand the greatness of Krishna through that. And also we'll understand the compassion he has, the loving compassion he has. Because just for us, because we did not listen to him there in spiritual world, we wanted to enjoy in the material world, he's doing this elaborate creation just for our benefit, to facilitate us. Instead of saying, I'm telling you, do it. He's giving us free will to love him with our own free will like that. So that's why we'll understand his greatness, and we'll appreciate his compassion. When we appreciate somebody, then we get attracted to them, and we want to love them, and then we want to move towards them like that. Same thing, we also understand our minuteness. When we hear whole this cosmic scale with 14 planetary systems within one universe, and there are millions of universes like that, each of them has Brahma, each of them has Garbhodasha Vishnu. And within this planet of universes, we are just one planet. Within that one planetary system, we are just one earth, small thing. So many descriptions will come in 5th canto. Like that, whole world is there within that one country, one state, one city, one street, one home, one small living entity we are. That also we can understand the minuteness or insignificance. Then we'll not be attached to the idea, I am the enjoyer, I am the center of this whole universe like that. That's what is being described. And then also it gives the overall confidence in scriptures for us, unshakable faith in scriptures. Because that helps, all these things will help us nourish our bhakti so that we can perform bhakti so nicely. So what is that overall confidence we get? When we see so many descriptions of these, Many of these things in Bhagavatam match with even our modern science also. If let us say I have faith in modern science, several of these things are proved by modern science after so many decades and centuries now. So for example, distance between Earth and Sun, Earth and Moon, science predicted one value earlier. Now they're coming closer and closer to the Bhagavatam prediction. All Bhagavatam given values already, Vedic scriptures given values already. Whereas Bhagavatam was there even before instruments are there, before telescopes are there, before great instruments are there, Bhagavatam already has it. When we see that, wow, how come Bhagavatam knows all these things beforehand? That means we can depend on Bhagavatam, Shabda Brahman. So that faith will get. Then we can take instructions of Bhagavatam so nicely in our heart, so that we can practice bhakti sincerely and go back to spiritual world. That's the other purpose of describing this universal creation. So now going to the next. Now we'll go into the 857. Okay, now we'll go into the chapter 7. The way I thought about is chapter 7 is describing about the incarnations of the Supreme Lord, whereas chapter 8 is describing different questions only, whereas the answers will come primarily in the 9th chapter and 10th chapter. So I'll focus in this presentation mostly on 7th chapter, and we'll browse through the questions in the 8th chapter primarily. Okay, because the answers in 9th chapter with the Chatushloki verses, and that's where you get the real answers for all the questions described in the 8th chapter. Now going to 7th chapter, because there's so many incarnations, we'll breeze through with understanding some of the key principles. But I want to tell, remember, when we understand the purpose and what are we meant to get from a section of reading of Srimad Bhagavatam, then it helps us to take it in fully in our heart. So a few things I'll mention. One is, when we hear all these different incarnations, it can increase our appreciation for our Supreme Lord. How Supreme Lord is coming in so many different forms just to please us, just to give us some subject matter to discuss, Krishna Katha, just to attract, because each of us may be attracted to a different form of the Supreme Lord, just to give us an option to attract us in different ways. And he comes in different ways to maintain the universe out of his compassion. All this, otherwise he can just enjoy in spiritual world. He actually does primarily enjoying in spiritual world, and simultaneously he comes in different incarnations also, we'll see. So that appreciation for Supreme Lord should come, and then also we should get attracted to Supreme Lord through these pastimes when we hear. That is, we can keep that in the back of our mind, and then we'll go through some of them. So basically, Supreme Lord came as Varaha form, Varaha incarnation. Even though he's in a Varaha form, which is like a boar, but is very transcendentally beautiful, is described. And all these pastimes are described later on in the Srimad Bhagavatam in a very elaborate way. In this section, simple description is given, simple mention is given, and some purpose is given, and some key lessons are given by Prabhupada in the purports for us. So we'll go through those. So what happened was, Hiranyaksha, who is one of the demons in the beginning of the creation, along with Hiranyakaspu, Hiranyaksha was doing a lot of mining to take out the gold from the earth. Because of that, the earth fell from the orbit into Garbhodaka ocean, which is in the universe we know. So then, Lord, as the maintainer of the universe, came in this boar form to go into the Garbhodaka ocean and lifted with this snout like this. See this snout, where he's lifting the earth. He became so huge that he can lift earth also with that. So that means this section is telling us actually that Lord comes in a form that is suitable for a particular purpose, and Lord exhibits wonderful, superhuman, wonderful activities like this that normal people cannot do. If somebody says I am an incarnation of the Lord, we need to see, can they do these wonderful human activities like this, or they can just produce some ash or some gold. That's what we need to see. So this is a nice. He kills the Hiranyaksha demon also with a fight. It's described, he just kills him with a slap after having fun for some time with fighting with him. So now this is a nice verse from Jayadev Goswami's Dasavatara Stotra. Vasati dasana sekare dharani tava lagna. Sasini kalanka kaleva nimagna. Keshavadrita sukara rupa. Jai Jagadisha Hare. So, O Keshava, O Supreme Lord, who assumed the form of a boar, O Lord, the planet Earth rested on your tusk, and it appeared like the moon, engraved with spots. Like that is glorifying. So, we'll browse through some of these incarnations. For example, Suyagna. So, here he is the son of Ruchi and Akuti, it seems. And he became Indra in one of the Manvantaras, and he diminished the miseries in the three planetary systems, it seems. That is why he was given the name of Hari by Swayambhu Manu. And the purport tells that our scriptures actually use the authentic, who is the incarnation, who is the father for them, which place he'll come, like that also it gives. If somebody says I'm incarnation, we need to ask, we need to see, is he mentioned in scriptures? His father name is mentioned in scriptures? The place of appearance mentioned in scriptures? Like that we can see Prabhupada writing in purport. Next is Kapiladev. Kapiladev is born to son as son of Kardamuni and Devahuti, both exalted devotees. And then he spoke the science of self-relation to his mother, and he liberated her in the same lifetime is described. So, Lord Kapiladev described her Sankhya philosophy, which is meant for devotion service only, not something else. And then he helped her realize the personal form of the Supreme Lord. And she went back to Vaikuntha Loka, where Lord Kapila also exists. Remember, in Vaikuntha, in the spiritual world, different Vaikuntha Lokas are there for different forms of the Lord. Like Narasimhadev has one Vaikuntha planet, Kapildev has one Vaikuntha planet, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, like that. So like that, she went back to Vaikuntha Loka. So purport Prabhupada writes, simply by following the instructions by Lord Krishna or Lord Kapila, even now, we can obtain the highest benefit even today. So we don't need to think, oh, I don't have son like Kapiladev who can instruct me. I don't have a friend like Krishna for Arjuna. We can benefit from these instructions even if we take them in our life and apply them now, right now. So then next he goes to Dattatreya incarnation. So Atri Muni did the worship of Supreme Lord, and Supreme Lord satisfied from him, he comes before him and says, I have given myself to you, like that. And it's called Dattatreya. And he purified Yadus, Hayas, etc. by his lotus feet dust, and they obtained both material blessing and spiritual blessing. That is the focus Prabhupada writes in the purport, material and spiritual blessing point. That means by doing devotion service, we don't need to be worried. I cannot get that, I cannot get that, I cannot get that. Supreme Lord gives us whatever we need in our life to be happy, both materially and spiritually, like that Prabhupada writes in the purport. So when we understand that, instead of doing something for this, something for that, something for the bhakti, we should focus our valuable time, energy, and enthusiasm to be fully engaged in the bhakti of the Supreme Lord. Then other desirable achievements will automatically come like that. And then we should be cautious about not offending any devotees. That's also point Prabhupada makes in the purport. Another important point Prabhupada makes is Sage Atri was in Vatsalya Rasa. That means parental mode. That's why Krishna came as his son, like that. So in this purport, Prabhupada emphasizes one point. Generally, parents serve the children most of the time, at least. They're meant to serve, children are meant to serve parents when they're becoming older. But the majority, most of their young age, everything, parents serve children so much, and children just depend on parents like that. That is why some devotees want to serve Krishna in this mode also, like that is described. Prabhupada is describing the purport like that. So now going to the four Kumaras. Four Kumaras, these are the names of four Kumaras: Sanaka, Sanat Kumara, Sanandana, and Sanatana. And they appeared from Brahma. And when Brahma performed austerities for creation, because remember we heard about secondary creation Brahma does, after Supreme Lord gives the ingredients, so to create forms and everything. So that's what he's talking about. During that time when he did austerities to create Praja, that time Kumaras came, it seems. Then Kumaras, before Kumaras was born, the spiritual truth, spiritual wisdom was lost, it seems, at the end of the previous Kalpa. That means previous day of Brahma. But in this day of Brahma, they establish spiritual truth very clearly. So everybody was convinced what is the spiritual truth like that. In the purport, Prabhupada writes, these four Kumaras were incarnations of the knowledge of Supreme Lord. Prabhupada writes in the first canto, third chapter, that they are like a Shakti Avashavatara with the knowledge potency of the Supreme Lord, like that he writes. So now, then Lord Brahma is describing to Narada Muni about Narnarayana incarnation. They are the son of Murti, who was the daughter of Daksha, and also Dharma. Dharma is their father, basically. And then, at least in this world, when they appeared like that. And then they came to exhibit their personal way of austerity and penance. And what happened was, they're showing by their example how to do the austerities and penances for perfection. And then Cupid and his associates, they want to break his vow like that. Vow was brahmachari, like that. Then Supreme Lord expands from him so many beautiful girls, it seems. So they're so beautiful. Even one of them is Urvasi is described. And Indra sends them, it seems, Cupid to disturb their penances. But then they're so beautiful that Cupid himself is falling flat for them, basically. So that's why, that's one thing described. That means they did not get disturbed. In fact, Cupid only is mesmerized because of the beauty that the Supreme Lord created. And then also in this section, in this verse is described that Lord Shiva, this is referring to another incident. Some time ago, Lord Shiva was disturbed by Cupid again, it seems. And that time, Shiva became angry, and with his wrath, he burned him to ashes, it seems. So that's why Cupid doesn't have body for some time. We hear in the 10th canto also, Srimad Bhagavatam, later on, how Pradyumna pastime it comes in. So, but in case, this comparing the relative position of Shiva and Supreme Lord, basically. So he's saying that Supreme Lord doesn't even get that neither lust, nor anger, nor wrath. Supreme Lord doesn't have those things like that. So that's what is being described here. And purport expands on that also. So the few important points in the purport is human life is meant for tapasya with great vow of celibacy. That means we're all meant to take brahmacharya training before become grostha, ideally. Though I did not get the opportunity myself, but ideally we can give the opportunity for our children to get trained properly before taking up grahastha ashram. So they cannot get into entanglement of attachments, but they lead a responsible grahastha life and cultivate devotion service also. And then we as grahasthas, many of us need to look forward to vanaprastha ashram. Ideally at the age of 50 is described in scriptures, and some purports write 55 like that. But the main essence is not the age only. In essence is try to devote most of our life for devotion service. And as we grow older, we should avoid earning money and all that business, wasting time with all those things and all the relatives like that, but focus more on devotion service like that. And then Prabhupada focuses in this purport about attraction for the opposite sex. He says, if you want to get freedom from material bondage, we need to become free from that attraction from opposite sex like that. And then it's a beautiful analogy given in this purport. Sorry, it got cut off a little bit. So basically, if somebody is making candy, every day they make sweets. So they'll have very little desire to eat the sweets that they're making. Similarly, if the Lord can produce innumerable spiritual beauties, like we've seen in this example, right? Then he'll be least attracted to material beauties in this world. So that is the analogy why it's being described is somebody thinks, oh, Krishna was trying to enjoy like ordinary material enjoyment with gopis like that, somebody thinks. But this is clearly telling that if he can create so many spiritual beauties at will, why would he be trying to enjoy somebody like that? That is one. Of course, there's so many reasons for seeing that Rasa Leela and all those things properly in proper perspective, like how Supreme Lord is transcendental. There his part and parcels only. It's a pure, not material sex thing. It's a spiritual attraction between them. Actually, in spiritual, there's no sex life actually that we see from third canto also coming up actually. Those are a few points. Yeah, we'll go to the next one. Next is Dhruv Maharaj pastime. When Dhruv Maharaj took the instructions of Narada Muni, in that I'm not going to the whole pastime because of the time. So he with great determination, he took the instructions of Narada Muni, association Narada Muni, and he sincerely followed the instructions of pure devotee Narada Muni, then he was able to see Prishni Garbha incarnation of Supreme Lord, who came with his four arms like this, and then he awarded Dhruvaloka planet to Dhruva. There's so many more lessons on this, each of these pastimes, but we'll go through the main purpose why the Supreme Lord came like that. Next is Prithvi Maharaj pastime, wherein Prithvi Maharaj's father's name was King Vena, and he was a very bad ruler. He didn't listen to Brahmanas, whereas Vedic culture is ruler needs to listen to Brahmanas and follow their direction. So he gives the proper, ensure the citizens are following the religious principle properly and go back to Godhead. But King Vena was not such a king. He did not listen to Brahmanas and creating a hell for everybody. So Brahmanas cursed him. So he was destined to go to hell. He was on the way to go to hell, basically. Then Prithvi Maharaj came. Sages actually produced Prithvi Maharaj also from the body of Vena. This will come later on in 4th canto. Then Prithvi Maharaj did two wonderful things. One is he delivered his father from the hellish planets. That's why it's called, Prabhupada writes in the purport, Putra means one who delivers from hell. Put means hell, it seems. And then he milked the earth and drew all kinds of crops as produce, it seems. That means he produced all wonderful things from the earth. So all prosperity is there in the earth again, like that. So in this purport, Prabhupada focuses on we might have so many great things: long life, obedience, good reputation, righteousness, prospects of being promoted to Svargaloka, like that. But and even great blessings of so many people we might have. But if we are disobedient to great souls, then all those things can go away, like that, Prabhupada writes. So that means we should be obedient to great souls, Mahatmas, saintly personalities, or spiritual master, like that. And then one should strictly try to follow in the footsteps of great souls, Satavrate, like that. So now, Rishabdev is described here. In the Rishabdev is the son of Sudevi and Nabhi. This is also further described, I believe, in 5th canto. So he performed materialistic yoga, is described. It's called Jada Yoga. So Prabhupada describes Jada Yoga in the purport. Basically, it involves practicing like becoming like a stone, not care about what is happening from material external effects in life, it seems. And they even torture their body with different kinds of pains, it seems, primarily to develop sense control and prepare for self-realization, it seems, primarily. But Prabhupada writes in the purport that Bhakti Yoga is the very practical for this age, not this Jada Yoga and all these things. And primary simple process of Bhakti Yoga is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So he gave material affection through that Jada Yoga, and he controlled senses as self-situated, it seems. And then Hayagriva incarnation, Supreme Lord comes up as Hayagriva to rescue Vedas. And is described as personified sacrifices, personified Vedas, and the super soul of all demigods. So all the Vedas came from his breathing, it seems. So Prabhupada writes in the purport that because Supreme Lord is the personified sacrifices, personified Vedas, then he is the super soul of all demigods. That means if we directly develop attachment to Supreme Lord and worship Supreme Lord, we don't need to worship all the demigods and do all the different Vedic injunctions that are given for other people who are at a lower consciousness, like that. Like that is giving. For fruity workers, what fruity workers follow, we don't need to worship. We need to worship demigods. Of course, it doesn't mean we disrespect demigods. We always respect demigods, but we don't need to worship them. That's the point being made. Next is Matsya Avatara. That means as fish incarnation at the end of the millennium. And when Satyavata was the king, Vaivasva Manu at that time, he sees the Lord as fish incarnation, which grows big, and big like that. He primarily comes to give shelter to all living entities, human beings, animals, demigods like that, sages like that is described. And also to protect the Vedas also is coming. In the water of the annihilation, see this picture, water of annihilation. In that he comes, and then he asks the Satyavrata to put a rope to this and have a boat tied to him, so that nothing will disturb during the annihilation time. They're all protected, basically. So Supreme Lord comes to protect his devotees and protect the Vedas, which are important for us to go back to Godhead. Scriptures are important. Then in the 8th canto, this pastime is described of Samudra Mantana, where the demigods and demons are churning the milk ocean. That time, they're having difficulty to keep the Mandara mountain to use as churning rod to churn. So they needed some base. So Supreme Lord comes as a Kurma Avatara, as a tortoise incarnation, and he stays as a base so they can do it. In fact, in this pastime, we'll see Supreme Lord comes as so many different incarnations to make sure we devotees get success, demigods get success like that. And then it's described, he had a small itch, it seems, while he was partially sleeping in that Kurma Avatara. So he was happy, he was relieved of the itch by the movement of the mountain, big mountain. So the purport is emphasizing one point, that is, we should not think that, oh, where is the milk ocean? We only see a water ocean. Where is the milk ocean? We should not think like that. We should trust the authentic scriptures, because the great spiritual leaders like Jiva Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they all accepted scriptures, number one. Number two, empirical evidence is there, like we discussed in the previous section, for things matching with science even now. So some of them, science doesn't know many things, but scriptures have many things already beyond this world also. So we should not have any hesitation to accept the statement of authentic scriptures. So Narasimhadev pastime is glorified in the 7th canto, where Narasimhadev comes to remove the fear of demigods, to protect his devotee Prahlad Maharaj. And this is how he kills Hiranyakashipu demon who is troubling his devotee Prahlad Maharaj. And the lesson we learn from this pastime is that materialistic plans of godless demons, if you think that there's no God, we'll do the best we can to get everything going, they will be frustrated. All those plans will be frustrated, like Hiranyakashipu, how his plans were frustrated like that by the all-powerful Lord. Going to the next verse, Hari incarnation. This was the incarnation. This was the Gajendra pastime, wherein Gajendra was an elephant who was, as you can see in the picture, most of you might know the pastime, where his leg was caught by the crocodile. And then Gajendra, because of his previous lifetime devotion service, see, this is important, because of his previous life devotion service, Supreme Lord reminded him of the prayer. So he could offer a lotus flower, see, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. He's offering a lotus flower and is praying to Supreme Lord. He got the remembrance from Supreme Lord and is praying like that. And he offers beautiful prayers, and Supreme Lord comes as a Hari, and he uses his Sudarshan Chakra to kill the crocodile and takes it back to the spiritual world. So some of the purport glorifies, Prabhupada is explaining some of the beautiful glorification that Gajendra is doing for him. First is, he says, your holy name and yourself is not different, like that, number one. Number two, he says, you are Adi Purusha, the original enjoyer, because you are creator of everything. That's why you're the original enjoyer. If you know that point, it's not that I know Krishna is the enjoyer, not like that. If you know that Krishna is the enjoyer, that means we know we are not the enjoyer. Then we offer everything to Krishna, and then only accept his remnants like that. That is the understanding. And he glorifies him as Akila Lokanada, Lord of the universe. That means he's also Lord of the elephant. If he's Lord of the universe, that means the protector of everyone. But he protects his pure devotees first. Why? Because they fully depend on Krishna. That is why. So how a parent, a mother or father take care of the youngest infant child first before they take care of the 8 years old boy or a 12 years old boy like that. Because baby child is fully dependent on them. Similarly, Supreme Lord takes care of us when we fully depend on him. If we depend on a little bit on bhakti, little bit on my own strength, little bit on this process, little bit on that process, Supreme Lord will give us only reciprocate little bit protection. But if we depend on Krishna fully with the bhakti, he will give full protection to us. And then he's also, Gajendra is also glorifying as Tirthasrava. That is as famous as a place of pilgrimage. Why? Because just by chanting his holy name, all purification will come, even if we don't go to pilgrimage place and take bath in Ganges like that, right? So that's why it's being glorified as famous as a place of pilgrimage like that. So, but that doesn't mean that we commit sinful activities consciously. That's an offense to the holy name. But if we accidentally, unconsciously, because of staying in Kali Yuga, commit some sinful activity, then we can be delivered by the chanting of the holy name like that. So his Supreme Lord is glorified as Namadeya, one whose holy name is worth chanting like that. And then he's also glorified as Aprameya, unlimited power of the Lord. Because Lord is in Vaikuntha Loka, somewhere in spiritual world. But you could hear the prayers of Gajendra in here, in the material world. And then he came so quickly also. And then he destroyed the crocodile quickly also. that is describing the omnipotency of the Supreme Lord, great potency of the Supreme Lord, that he can do anything from anywhere. He can appear simultaneously in different places at the same time also. And then we go into Vamanadev pastime. Basically, Vamanadev was appeared as son of Aditi, and he surpassed all the qualities of Adityas. Adityas are one category of demigods. And then on the pretense of 3 steps of land from Bali Maharaj, he took away everything. So is described in the translation, actually verse of that when somebody possesses rightfully something, we cannot take you, snatch it away, it seems. We have to beg from them. That's why Vamana took this form, to beg from Bali Maharaj. Because even Bali Maharaj, actually, with his power, with his strength as a Kshatriya, he defeated demigods and took their kingdom. That's why he came like that. And then this purport, Prabhupada writes beautiful lessons that by giving everything to the Supreme Lord, we don't lose anything. Like Bali Maharaj, he gained everything. He gained the association of Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord became his doorkeeper in the Sutala planet. And he becomes next life, he becomes, next Manvantara, he becomes Indra also, heaven planet king. He got both material and spiritual happiness, basically. Then another important point Prabhupada emphasizes so much on this purport is that we should focus on simple life, not complicating our life with this, that, like that. Keep our life simple so that we can live your life and practice devotion service nicely with full enthusiasm, time and energy, like that. That way, that will help us to be satisfied with the minimum also, he says, by not creating artificial needs. Artificial needs means whenever we think about something as a need, we need to think, is it really a need or is it a want? How is it helping me in devotion service? Is it favorable for my devotion service? Is it unfavorable for my devotion service? Like that. Now going to Hamsa Avatara. This is Supreme Lord. This is also described in the 11th canto a little bit. Sorry if there's a typo for Narada name there. Supreme Lord was very much pleased with Narada Muni, it seems, due to his devotion service. So he taught Narada about Bhakti Yoga. That's what is described in the verse. In the purport, Prabhupada writes a couple of points. That is, to become one of the preliminary qualifications for entering into Bhakti is that we should become a willing cooperator with persons who are already engaged in Bhakti. That is the important point. We should work cooperatively with other devotees. That's the point he makes. And then he glorifies Srimad Bhagavatam as a lamp of transcendental knowledge. What does it do? Currently, we have many of us have artificial covering over our natural affinity to love Krishna. So that artificial covering, it removes just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, reading Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, like that. And then Manvantara Avatara is described how as a descendant in the Manu dynasty, he comes and he subdues miscreant rulers. His glory spread all over the 3 worlds, like that. And then in the Samudra Mantana pastime, he comes as Dhanvantari Avatara. He brings the pot of nectar. He's also called inaugurated Ayurveda science. And the point in the purport Prabhupada makes is that by the grace of Krishna, not only our body and mind diseases are cured, but also our soul is cured, relieved of the repeated birth and death cycle in this material world, like that. And then Parashurama incarnation is described how he uprooted all the Kshatriyas for 21 times because they turned away from absolute truth. They're not following religious principles, like that. And they're being pretentious also is described in the section. So purport main lesson for us is, each of us is a leader, not only the kings of the state or the president, prime minister. Each of us is a leader, as a father, mother, or a brother, elder brother, like that, elder sister, like that. And it's also duty of a father and spiritual master or any leader to guide the dependents towards God realization. That is the point Prabhupada makes in the purport. Of course, Ramachandra pastimes are also briefly discussed, though the full pastime is discussed in 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he was son of Dasharatha in Ikshvaku dynasty. We know he went into the forest in obedience to his father's order. He killed Ravana, and Ravana, he took away the pride of Ravana, like this described. The couple of lessons in this purport, of course, so many lessons in Ramana we know. Couple of lessons in the purport Prabhupada makes is that we don't worship Lakshmi Devi alone. We worship Supreme Lord along with his consort, Narayana and Lakshmi, Radharani and Krishna, Sita and Rama, like that. We don't try to acquire only Lakshmi Devi or Sita or rather than like that. That's the point he makes basically. We know this is a point Prabhupada loves it, that Lakshmi Devi is Chanchala. So if you only worship Lakshmi Devi, she moves away. But if you worship Supreme Lord Narayana, then she will stay with Lakshmi Devi. He keeps saying in Srimad Bhagavatam purport regularly. So then other point he makes is, however powerful a Jiva may be, if God wants to condemn him, no one can save him. And similarly, if God wants to protect, somebody may be so big, he'll offer all protections and nobody can harm in any way. And the next several verses are simply 10th canto coming up early in 2nd canto, beautiful pastimes of Krishna, primarily establishing two main things I noticed. One is transcendental nature of Krishna. Of course, there may be many aspects, but I'm emphasizing two aspects. Transcendental nature of Krishna and superhuman nature of Krishna. Superhuman wonderful pastimes of Krishna, like that. So when he appears also, he comes with the hair, he comes with all ornaments, and see how with cloth, any baby doesn't get born like that in the material world. So that itself shows that he is a spiritual body and is a transcendental to this material world, like that. And then some of his superhuman activities are described in this verse, like how he, as a small baby in lap of mother's womb, he killed Putana, later he killed Shakatasura, later he uprooted big Arjuna trees when he's crawling itself. That is showing, even when Krishna appears as a small baby, he's the same Supreme Lord. He doesn't have to become Supreme Lord like that. And nobody can become Supreme Lord by doing some meditation or something like that. Supreme Lord is always Supreme Lord. We remain Jiva always, like that. So he didn't have to expand his form to kill Putana. As a small baby, he killed Putana. That's the point Prabhupada makes in the purport. Now, this is a Kaliya pastime we most of us know. So Kaliya chastises the Kaliya. Krishna chastises the Kaliya, sorry, by dancing on top of his hoods. And this is the superhuman pastimes of the Supreme Lord that distinguishes us from ordinary jivas, like that. And then this is another, some more superhuman activities of Supreme Lord. He's swallowed the forest fire when all the Rajavasis and cows were in danger, like that. And then here the pastimes about Damodar Leela that we know, how he comes under the control of Masura Yashoda, like that also, and how he pulls down the twin Arjuna trees, and how he shows the whole universe within his mouth. That proves his Supreme Lord. And then this is about how when Nanda Maharaj goes to take bath in a river one time, Varuna Dev's attendants arrest him. So Krishna releases him from them and releases the Gopas from Vyomasura, like that. And he awards Vrajavasis the promotion to the Vaikuntha Loka, spiritual sky. That proves his Godhead clearly. Like that, he lifts Govardhan Giri with just one hand, one finger for 7 continuous days to protect all the Vrajavasis, especially to protect the cows, he describes. Of course, this is a wonderful sweet pastime. Then he kills Senkachuda, who kidnapped the damsels of Raja. And then he kills Kamsa and several other demons mentioned here. And he awards them, main point mentioned is he awards them liberation by killing them. So even demons, when he kills, is giving benefit to them, like that. That is the merciful nature of the Supreme Lord. As Vyasadeva, he compiles the Vedas for all people like us and less intelligent people of Kali Yuga. And as Buddha, he bewilds the minds of atheists, but he makes them follow him. That way they'll gradually elevate towards spiritual life finally, like that. And then as Kalki, he comes toward the end of the Kali Yuga to destroy all the people, so that way it can be restarted again next Yuga. And then as Gunavataras, he helps in the creation, maintenance, annihilation, like Lord Brahma and others we see here, Lord Vishnu and demigods maintaining, and then annihilation time, Lord Shiva. They're all coming from him only. He's the source of them. And then after describing all these Leela Avataras, Brahma says to Narada Muni, actually it's impossible to describe the greatness of Lord Vishnu without his mercy. That's the point. So he says, I cannot describe the greatness. Anantasesha with 100,000s of mouths, he cannot describe the Supreme Lord. He cannot finish the pastimes. But then when we get the mercy of Supreme Lord by doing devotion service, then myself, you and great devotees like this, he is describing the names, can all understand something about Krishna by his mercy, like that. Then he says, not only Kshatriyas and Brahmanas, even the lower persons also. people who have developed with bad qualities because of somehow they born in some family. Even they, when they surrender to pure devotees, they can learn from pure devotees and they can also glorify Supreme Lord. They can also understand Supreme Lord. Because when we receive the mercy from pure devotees, we can receive mercy from Krishna also. So this is towards the end of the 7th chapter we're coming. Basically, he says, in this set of verses, he describes how we know there are three aspects of Bhagavan, right? Brahma Jyoti, which is the effulgence of Supreme Lord. Paramatma, which is the localized form of the Supreme Lord in the heart of every living entity and atom also. And then as Bhagavan, feature of the Lord with all 6 opulences. So all these 3 features are belonging to say one Supreme Lord. And that Bhagavan feature is the ultimate benefactor who bestows the results of everything, whether it's yoga, gnana, karma, doesn't matter. So whatever effort we make, endeavor we make in spiritual life this time, will be carried over to the next life also. So to attain the highest result of Krishna Prema from the Lord, we should take up bhakti, not other process. That is the conclusion given in the purports here. So this is the last set of verses for the 7th chapter. Basically, Brahma says, I explain Supreme Lord Hari's features as it relates to this world, and also he also controls he also is in the spiritual world, is not just in the material world. So please distribute this Srimad Bhagavatam for the benefit of everyone, so that bhakti will raise in everyone who listens to Srimad Bhagavatam like that. And then he describes the importance of creation pastimes. Remember, I told you there's another reason for importance of understanding creation pastimes, that is here, which is when we understand about Maya's intricate nature, then we are careful about being with Maya and will not be bewildered by Maya, because we'll see this is Maya's creation. This is my mind affecting me like that. So then we'll not be bewildered by Maya. That's the other benefit he's giving at the end of this chapter, Brahma to Narada Muni. Now, sorry, I think we're already more than 1 hour.
Prabhu, if you are okay, do this chapter. You only do this chapter next week.
Okay, sure, Mate.
Can do it in, right?
Sure, Mate. Thank you, Mate. We'll do that. Yeah.
You have to hurry and it won't work out nicely. This space was perfect for us, Prabhu.
Sure, Mate. Sorry, I intended to do both, but I could not make it in time. Sorry, Mate, about that.
Sometimes we are overloading the speakers, telling them to do 2, which is sometimes not feasible.
Yeah, I should have done it, but it's okay. Sure, thank you, Mate.
Yeah, and we can focus nicely on each chapter and study it better, maybe. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely, Mate. That will give opportunities to study also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, Mate.
Thank you, Prabhu. I really liked the summary a lot, and I enjoyed the chapter. It was very entertaining, actually. Dimensions of the Lord is discussed in this chapter. And thank you for the flow, for connecting the previous canto to this chapter, and also talking the previous canto to this canto, and then connecting the first few cantos and this chapter, first few chapters to this canto, and also bringing about Sutapa Prabhu's acronym and then relating it that way. It was all nicely weaved together, Prabhu. So thank you so much for that. Prabhu, I had 2 questions. One is about dharma, Murti and dharma, right? So Murti gets married to dharma. So this dharma is not is one of the, we should understand him as King Dharma, meaning he was a king dharma, or should we understand him to be Dharmaraja, who is Yamaraj?
Oh, I do not remember, Mate. I'll go through that section one more time.
Sure.
Unless any other devotees in the call, they know also they can share. Yeah. Sure, Mate.
Yeah, and another thing was about, I don't know, in that Buddha incarnation, did Prabhupada write anything in the purport that there were 2 different Buddhas are discussed in the second canto? Can you elaborate more about it?
Yeah, sure, Mate. Basically, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commentary talks about it. Basically, this Buddha was in a previous kalpa. That means previous kalpa, not previous kalpa. Not basically not in this Kali Yuga. That's the main point he makes. That means remember in each kalpa there are 71 to 72 Divya Yugas, right? So 71 Kali Yugas are coming. So in one other Yuga he comes like that, he discusses. That is what I remember, Mate, about that Buddha. Not from this Kali Yuga, but some other Kali Yuga like that I remember.
Okay, Prabhu. Yeah, it was very interesting, Prabhu. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Session very much. And that Hamsanta Prabhu, so they talk about him giving knowledge. Is that what he does?
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
gives knowledge too.
In this section is described as giving knowledge to Narada Muni specifically, but in the 11th canto we hear that he gives the knowledge to Brahma and all the sages.
Sages, yeah, that's right.
Because they're asking the question like we all have the mind and the sense objects are there. They're so intricately related. How can we separate them? Is it even possible like that? To answer that questions, Brahma says, Brahma meditates on Supreme Lord, prays to Supreme Lord, and he comes as Hamsa Avatara and gives that knowledge. Basically.
So
that's the
we
context.
reconcile saying that among the sages, Narada was also present. So like that in the second canto, they are telling he spoke to Narada. Like
That's how I understand. Mother. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
There it said sages, Brahma's sons, sages, like that is said in the 11th canto.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very nice, Prabhu. It's very intriguing. It's one of my favorite topics also. So it was very interesting.
Yeah. Sure.
Thank you for covering it in so much detail and picking sentences from the purports to substantiate everything. So thank you so much, Hari.
Thank you, Mother. Yeah. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Anyone else has any questions or comments for Prabhuji? I see Mataji, any question?
Hare Krishna. I just want to thank Prabhuji. It was very interesting, Prabhuji. You gave us such nice key points in each of the, it was very, the flow was very good, Prabhuji. It was very nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mother. Hare Krishna. Mother.
Vinita Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. What a beautiful
Hare
class.
Krishna.
Prabhu. First time hearing your Bhagavatam class.
Oh, okay, sure.
I heard about your classes. They are very simple and easy to understand, but I experienced now. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for such a simple class. You have connected first canto to second canto and revision of all the chapters. You made us to understand how we came here. And so beautiful, Prabhuji. I had to hear it again. Such a nice class. I really loved it. For me, it's very hard to understand. You made me to understand means everybody will understand, Prabhuji. It's small kids can also understand because my knowledge is very, very, very low. I could understand when I was thinking such a simple class. Very, very beautiful, Prabhuji. Very grateful to you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mother. Yeah, I'm in the same boat, Mother. Luckily, we have Prabhupada purports and Burjan Prabhu study guide and Gauranga Darshan Prabhu study guide. And
thank you, Prabhuji. It was
Keshav Swami
very,
Maharaj.
very simple, Prabhuji. I really liked the class.
Yeah, thank you, Mother.
And especially you took main points from the purport. Each purport has highlight points, like at least that one line, because it's a whole summary. We can't give a details about each verse. But then that one line is understood, the whole purport is understood. That was very interesting, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for taking that one point and making us understand the whole purport. Very good, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Mother. Yeah.
Sukha Sagari Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Mother.
Very beautiful class, Prabhuji, like all Mataji said. Very simple, you explained everything in simple words. And it was so interesting also the way you explained everything and connected everything. Like, I was like thinking it's like just a list of incarnations, how it'll be, but you, gave the excerpt of each incarnation, the important points. It was very nice, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for churning the nectar here. I just have one question, Prabhuji. Maybe this is too much of a detail, but I was just wondering, like, this is discussing the incarnations of the Lord. So it says in the verse 2 that Suyagnya as the Indradeva diminished very great miseries in the 3 planetary systems. And because he so diminished the miseries of the universe, he was later called Hari by the great father of mankind, namely Swayambhuva Manu. So are we to understand that this is also the incarnation, right? That's what is being mentioned here, right? Suyagnya?
Suyagnya, I do not remember fully, but one thing I remember is this chapter is not only covering Leela Avataras, not only covering Shakti Avasya Avataras, it's also covering Vibhutis also. That means Vibhutis are lower than even Shakti avatars, but Jivas also. That also is covering. But I do not remember this particular incarnation comes into which category. I do not remember, Mataji. I can look through one more time. But but the point is that this is not only Leela Avataras, even though that's how it starts in the previous chapter end, right? It's covering all different incarnations, including Vibhutis also. Balaram Shakti Prabhu also makes that comment in his classes to the Pune devotees. It's a Vibhuti also. That means Jiva Tattva also he makes it basically. Not only Shakti Avataras. Remember in first canto, third chapter, we only hear about up to Shakti Avataras, right?
Yeah.
But in this chapter, there are Vibhutis also is described. But to your question, I do not know that is the right answer. I'll read also, Mataji. If I find something, I'll share with you also.
Sure, no worries, Prabhu. I was just curious because Prabhupada also mentions in the purport that no one can be accepted as an incarnation of the Lord if his father's name as well as the name of the village or place in which he appears is not mentioned by the authorized scriptures. So I was just wondering, because here clearly he says, he was later called Hari by the great father of mankind, namely Swayambhu Manu. So that's why I just got thinking. So, but you, like you said, this is an incarnation of the Lord, but
Correct.
not necessarily Leela Avatar.
Yeah, Mataji, if I can add, that's okay.
Yeah, please go ahead, Mataji. Yeah.
Yes.
Mataji, Canto 4, Chapter 1, verse number 6, translation and purport. The Lord of all ritualistic performance of Yajna later married Dakshina, who was anxious to have the personality of Godhead as her husband. And in his wife, the Lord was very much pleased to beget 12 children. So in Canto 4, when the incarnations, again, they are discussed just after, it's around the same time as I'm not able to paste it here. I don't know why. Usually we can paste verses in the chat. Somehow it's not working for me.
No worries, Preeti. I kind of understood the context because I was wondering that there is mention of this somewhere else, like in the fourth canto or so, because where all these Devuti, Prasuti, Akuti, all the children are their pastimes are being described. So yeah, thank you for that reference. Yeah, I always think it comes later somewhere, but I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, 7.2 also has this. 7th canto, 2nd chapter also has more about Sri Yagnavata. Yeah, but I didn't get to refer to that one more time. Yeah.
Yeah, he was actually Indra in one Manvantara. Sometimes it's that the Lord takes the role of Indra if there is no suitable candidate. So in that mantra, he also takes the role of Indra. So he was like we have for why I'm telling this is because in every Manvantara, there will be one the set of demigods. There'll be one person who will be there'll be a set of Saptarishi. They are these standard people. So in that, there is also the Indra who's a standard in every Manvantara, and one person is selected as Indra. So in that particular Manvantara, it is mentioned that actually there was no person who was capable of being Indra, and Lord himself was an incarnation.
When you say standard, you mean like in every kalpa, like
Manvantara.
Every
in Manvantara.
There are rishis, set of demigods, demigods. Then there are set
Indra
of
and
the sons of Manu, Indra, like that. So yeah, in that set, once there was no qualified Indra, and Suyagnya or Yagnya, as he's called, he married.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Mataji and
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Mataji. Yeah, thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Bharat Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thanks
Hare
for
Krishna.
the wonderful class. It was so great to get so much of the verses covered in some small time, 1 hour. So, Prabhuji, my question is like that, we have studied so many incarnations of the Lord now in this 1 hour. So, like, what lesson we can take for our practical life by studying the incarnations of the Lord?
Very nice, Prabhu. Nice question. Yeah. Basically, Supreme Lord comes in his various incarnations like this primarily for several reasons we hear from scriptures. But we should develop attraction by saying, oh, one of the main reason he comes is to please his devotees, to protect his devotees. That should attract us. Wow, he comes to protect Prahlad Maharaj like that. He comes to protect an elephant, Gajendra, when he prays like that. That is one way we can take it. Another way is he is giving, by coming in different incarnations, is creating attractive pastimes. So we all can discuss and understand this, appreciate these attractive pastimes. So then we have this Krishna Katha is part of the bhakti, one of the main part of bhakti, like one of those purport Prabhupada was saying. That way we can get purified and we can develop mutual friendships between us and mutual very happy satisfaction within our heart also by describing this pastime like that. That means he's giving that facility for us to develop satisfaction, pleasure, and attraction to him like that. That is another thing. And third aspect is, third is important aspect, Radhesham Prabhu emphasizes this point, which is that initially, when we start the devotion service initially, what happens is we come up with some kind of material mentality. Okay, I'm going to get this by doing this like that. That's how we start. For example, I like book distribution, for example. Then I do book distribution thinking that I'll become the top book distributor in USA like that. Then I'm employing my material tendencies in devotion service, which is good, not bad. And then I get the rasa, taste in bhakti like that by engaging in book distribution, trying to get first like that. But then at some point, let us say my service changes from book distribution to something else. Then my anchor is gone now. So Radhesham Prabhu says, when we hear the incarnations and the sweet pastimes of the Lord like this in Bhagavatam, then we should develop some attraction towards the Lord through these pastimes. Wow, Lord is amazing like that. When we develop that attraction, then that becomes the anchor for us to move forward in bhakti. Now our primary motivation is not becoming first in my book distribution in USA. Primary motivation is, wow, Lord is so compassionate. He's doing so many things just for me to go back. He's so kind. He's so merciful. Like that we'll understand and it will motivate us to do more bhakti like that. That's the other aspect Radhesham Prabhu discussed, Prabhu, Bharat Prabhu. Makes sense to you?
Yes, Prabhuji, very nice explanation. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Dhanwad Pranam.
Dhanwad Pranam, Prabhu. You're welcome.
Bhavana Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandvat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for explaining so nicely and sweetly the sweet incarnations of Lord. Prabhuji, my question is like I need to know more about like the Tatri incarnation when you explained that. And there was one picture of the Tatri incarnation in which dogs were surrounding. So is there any kind of significance of dogs also means of that any pastime?
Got it. I do not remember the full pastime myself, Mataji. So I will request if any other devotee on the call knows, if you can please describe.
I don't remember the pastime fully, but something to do with 4 Vedas, right? Is that what it was? The 4 dogs and the 4 Vedas, something like that. There was some connection. But you don't read so much of his pastime, so we don't know exactly what it is.
Sorry, Bhanumati, I don't know much about it.
No issue,
Prabhupada didn't go into detail in the purport also.
Okay.
Yeah. And if I find something, I'll share so that way it can be shared in the group also. Yeah.
Yeah, sure, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Prabhuji, means, can you please somewhat elaborate on the Dattatreya incarnation? Means I don't know much about that incarnation.
Yeah, basically, what a little bit I know is that Atri Muni was worshipping the Supreme Lord, it seems. And then and he was in a mood of parental mood that he wants to take care of like a child, Supreme Lord like a child. That's how Prabhupada describes in the purport. And with Vatsalya Rasa, like how Yashoda Mataji is in the mood of taking care of the child, like that he wants to take care of the child, it seems. So then that's why Supreme Lord says, I'll become you. I've given myself to you. I'm very pleased with you like that. So that's why it's called Dattatreya, like that. That's what is described in the purport, Mataji. I don't know if any other details anybody remembers, any other devotees, please also feel free to share. So it will help all of us.
I think in another canto, it is described in a little more detail about how that actually Atrimani wasn't clear about who the Supreme Lord is in one. So there was no proper clarity.
Okay.
And appeared the controllers of the universe, as we call them, the different Ishvaras together, the three of them, they appeared and they became his son. So therein a purport Srila Prabhupada mentions that he was a mixed devotee. He didn't really understand who the Supreme Lord was specifically. But the Lord said that there is no one like me. I mean, like only I have to come, like that. So then the three of them together, they come and they become the child. There is one interesting purport of Srila Prabhupada that speaks about this mood of Atrimuni, why Dattatreya was a combined incarnation. And each one was an amsha of, that, right? Like the, that Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva together. There are some stories that is mentioned in Mahabharata and Ramayana, if I'm not wrong, about how exactly Atri's wife actually she served food to the babies and all that. So there are a lot of stories around how they incarnated. But Srimad Bhagavatam has only so much. In one other purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions about Atri Muni.
Yeah, thank you
Okay.
so much, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare
Yeah.
Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Mataji.
Anybody else has any questions or comments? Okay, so we can end the call here. Thank you, Prabhu. Very
Thank you, Mataji.
We're so grateful to you. And please do the next chapter too.
Sure.
Our next session, Prabhu. We'll just continue on the same lines and we can
Sure.
take 9.
Sure, Mataji.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki
Ki Jai.
Ki Jai.
Ki Jai.
Ki Jai. His Grace Sundaranand Prabhu ki Jai.
Hare
All
Krishna.
glories to all. Hare Krishna.